In this video, we're going to cover the basics of the Ichimoku Cloud and the Ichimoku Cloud System. And the first thing we're going to do is cover the terms of art. Now, every specialty has its own terms of art, doctor, lawyer, swing trader. And you have to know the terms of art to know what you're dealing with and to gain familiarity. And there's 6 components, 4 major components to the Ichimoku Cloud. And we're going to cover them using the Japanese names. And the first one is the Tenkan Sen, and also called the turning line in English. And that is a 9-bar range. You take the highest high, the lowest low, add them up, divide them by 2, and that's the midpoint. That's the Tenkan Sen. The Kijun Sen, sometimes called the standard line in English, is a 26-bar high-low midpoint. The Chikou Span, also called the lagging line, is today's close with a minus 26-bar offset. It's plotted 26 bars behind today's bar. And the fourth component is the Kumo, or the cloud. And that's made up of 2 other things. The Chikou Span A, which is the midpoint of the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen, and that has a plus 26 bar offset. It's plotted 26 bars forward. And the Chikou Span B, which is a midpoint of a 52-bar high-low range, and that's also plotted 26 bars forward. And the Kumo is the cloud, and the Kumo is what consists of the shaded or colored area between Span A and Span B. And this is what it all looks like. The Tenkan Sen, 9-day range, Kijun Sen, 26-day range, Chikou Span, today's close, offset minus 26 days, and the Kumo, the cloud, the shaded area between the Span B and the Span A. One characteristic of the Span B is because it's a 52-day range of the highest high and the lowest low, you often get periods where it's just completely flat because the high or the low doesn't change, or the highest high and the lowest low doesn't change, and those are the only 2 things that matter. So I just want to say at this point in time that the Tenkan Sen, the Kijun Sen, and the Span A and Span B that make up the Kumo are not moving averages. In other words, today's value is not affected by yesterday's value or the day before's value as it is with a moving average. The only thing that matters is the highest high and the lowest low for the period. And that's why we get these long flat periods with Span B. Now let's just go over the individual components then. The first one is the Tenkan Sen. And again, it's the midpoint of a 9-bar range. And the Tenkan Sen, it'll show a short-term directional bias. In other words, if it's heading up, then we know that the 9-day range is expanding. It shows short-term support and resistance, and it also shows short-term momentum, and we can judge that by the angle of ascent or descent. And the Tenkan Sen is also used to create the TK cross signal, and that's where the Tenkan Sen crosses the Kijun Sen, as you can see right here. And we're not going to really get into trading signals. I'll mention a few in this video, but it's more important to understand what the components are and actually what the Ichimoku Cloud is before we start talking trading signals. The next is the Kijun Sen, which is one of the I guess I'd call it the major components because it's the midpoint of the 26-bar range, and when price crosses the Kijun Sen, it often signals a change in trend. Now we can see from here the red box constitutes the 26 bars, the high-low of which we use to plot the Kijun Sen, and the little yellow box here, or tan-colored box, is the Tenkan Sen, and that's the high-low, the highest high, the lowest low of this 9-bar period divided by 2. Now, because the Kijun Sen is the midpoint of a 26-day range or a 26-bar range, it often acts as a price magnet, and price will return to the Kijun Sen. And we use the Kijun Sen as major support and resistance both for our analysis and for trading. And the Kijun Sen is the second part of the TK cross signal that we'll discuss in a future video. The third component is the Chikou Span, and the Chikou Span is very simply today's close offset back 26 bars. So it's 26 bars in the past. Now, the value of the Chikou Span is it's going to show us when the current bar is clear of the trading range, and that becomes obvious when it's just out in the open clear. Now, the Chikou Span is a major trade filter, and it's going to help us avoid bad trades. And another feature of the Chikou Span that we can use for our analysis and trading is it often reacts at the Kumo and other price support and resistance levels. The fourth element is the Kumo, or the cloud. And the cloud shows current and future major support and resistance. And we're showing on this chart what we call the dark future, and that's because the cloud has twisted. It's gone from bullish, which is indicated by this green color, to bearish, indicated by the brownish color. And one of the things we do when evaluating bullishness or bearishness is we look out in the future and determine whether it's bright or dark. And we mentioned the span B lines, which is the 52-bar range. And these flat lines often show support and resistance across the entire chart, not just the current situation. We can see this is an AMD daily chart, and the bars have hit the bottom of the cloud, this flat line, and have found support there. And we can see that that was also a support area in the flat area of the cloud that had preceded it. Now, price position relative to the Kumo is a no-go swing trading filter on our mother chart. And in the next video, we'll talk about mother charts and why it's important to determine what your trading time frame is. Now, why is the Ichimoku Cloud System, why can it be important to you? What's its real value? And this is a chart of AMD Advanced Micro Devices from the very beginning of February, or the very beginning of the year 2016. And it went from like $2 up to $15.50. Fabulous gain. But we can see that I just quickly boxed off areas where it was not a straight shot, although when you look at a 1.5-year chart it seems to be. But there were many periods where AMD went into a trading range. Now, if you bought it at $2, throw it in your portfolio and played golf for a 1.5 years, you did great. But most of us don't do that. And once you get involved in one of these trading ranges, then, you know, trading can become difficult. And there's plenty of examples here where if you got involved in August of 2016 and bought it at 7.5, you'd watch it fall to 5.5 within a few weeks. Or if you bought it at 12.50, it fell to 9.50. So when a stock is in a trading range, you want to avoid it if you're looking for capital gains, certainly. And you want to be able to develop a sense of when it's coming out of the range. And that is the real value of the Ichimoku Cloud System. It's a swing trading system that gives us visual clues as to when the stock is in a range and when it's coming out of a range and becoming an attractive, viable trading candidate. So in that sense, the Ichimoku Cloud can give us both context and confidence that our assessment of the bullish or bearish trading opportunity has some basis in fact. And we just put up here an example of the AMD. This is the last few months of the chart we saw previously, and the Ichimoku Cloud representation of about the same time frame. And if the cloud on the right looks confusing, it probably will now, but it won't by the end of the video, and you'll have an objective method for assessing bullishness and bearishness and the attractiveness of a trade opportunity. So the main purpose of the video then is just to establish the 5 bullish chart rules and the 5 bearish chart rules, so you can look at a chart, at an Ichimoku Cloud chart, and be able to immediately assess whether it's in a bullish or a bearish condition. And the rules are: number 1, price above the Kumo, price bars above the Kijun, and we're talking about the last bar, the most recent bar. We want the Tenkan Sen above the Kijun Sen, which it is here, and we want the Chikou above the price bars, preferably out of the cloud, but definitely above the price bars. And we want a bright future. And to determine the future, you look at the far right side of the chart and see if the cloud is green or brown, and that's the bright or bearish future. Now the bear chart rules are, as you would expect, the opposite. You want price below the Kumo, you want price below the Kijun, you want the Tenkan below the Kijun and both below the Kumo, and you want the Chikou, the lagging line, below the price bars, and you want a dark future. And on the this Chesapeake or CHK chart, we can see that it fulfills all of those requirements. So if you just learn these 5 rules, you can assess the degree of bearishness or bullishness for any chart. And that completes this video. I hope you found it useful. The next video we'll talk about mother charts and why it's important to choose time frames, and then after that we'll start getting into live examples and trading signals.